A billionaire father believed his 6-year-old son was completely blind, resigned to a life of darkness. Then a kind waitress at a small cafe noticed something that changed everything. What she discovered exposed a devastating truth that would shatter a family, and then heal it in the most unexpected way. Alexander Morrison sat in the corner booth of Maple Street Cafe on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, his expensive suit contrasting sharply with the modest neighborhood restaurant. Beside him sat his son, Oliver, a 6-year-old boy with dark hair and pale blue eyes that never seemed to focus on anything, his small hands reaching tentatively for objects on the table as if navigating a world without sight. Alexander, 42 years old and founder of Morrison Technologies worth over $3 billion, watched his son with familiar sadness, the weight of Oliver's blindness pressing on his shoulders like it had every day since his wife Emily's death 3 years ago during childbirth complications that had also damaged Oliver's optic nerves, or so the doctors had told him. Maya Rodriguez approached their table with a warm smile, her waitress uniform neat despite working a double shift, her 28 years showing in tired eyes that still sparkled with genuine kindness. She'd worked at Maple Street Cafe for 5 years, supporting her younger sister through college, her cheerful demeanor making her favorite among regular customers. "Good afternoon. What can I get you gentlemen today?" Alexander ordered absently, his attention divided between his phone and Oliver, but Maya noticed something that made her pause. Oliver's eyes had followed her movement when she approached, a split-second tracking that blind children simply couldn't do. Maya said nothing immediately, not wanting to alarm the father or confuse what she'd seen. But over the next 30 minutes as she served their meal, she watched Oliver carefully. The boy reached for his juice cup with hesitation, appropriate for blind child. But twice Maya caught his eyes flickering toward the window when cars passed, and once she saw him look directly at a colorful bird that landed on the windowsill outside before quickly returning to his unfocused gaze. Her heart began racing as impossible possibility formed. What if this child wasn't blind? What if something else was happening? After delivering their dessert, Maya knelt beside Oliver's chair, speaking gently. "Hi, Oliver. I'm Maya. I noticed you like that bird outside. It's a beautiful red cardinal." Oliver's face remained carefully blank, but Maya saw his fingers twitch, saw the micro-expression of surprise cross his features before his mask returned. Alexander looked up from his phone, confused. "My son can't see the bird. He's been completely blind since birth. The doctors confirmed extensive optic nerve damage." Maya chose her words carefully, not wanting to give false hope, but unable to ignore what she'd observed. "Mr. Morrison, I'm not a doctor, but I've worked with special needs children through volunteer work. May I try something?" With Alexander's bewildered permission, Maya pulled a bright red napkin from her apron and moved it slowly across Oliver's field of vision, while speaking to Alexander to distract him. Oliver's eyes tracked the napkin for 3 full seconds before he caught himself and returned to his blank stare. Maya's breath caught. "Mr. Morrison, I think you need to take Oliver to a different specialist. I believe he can see." Alexander's face went through shock, denial, and desperate hope in rapid succession. "That's impossible. Multiple doctors confirmed his blindness. We've been to the best specialists in the country." Maya's voice was gentle but firm. "Sometimes we see what we expect to see. Please, just get a second opinion. For Oliver's sake." That evening, driven by Maya's conviction and his own desperate hope, Alexander took Oliver to a different ophthalmologist, demanding comprehensive testing without revealing Oliver's supposed diagnosis. 3 hours of examinations later, the doctor delivered shocking news. Oliver's vision was completely normal. There was no optic nerve damage, no physical impairment, no medical reason for blindness. His eyes were perfectly healthy. Alexander felt his world tilt as the implications crashed over him. If Oliver could see, why had he been pretending to be blind for 6 years? What had the original doctors missed? Or worse, what had he missed? The truth emerged slowly through gentle conversations with Oliver and consultations with child psychologists who helped the traumatized boy finally speak about years of silent suffering. Oliver's blindness had been fabricated by his nanny, Margaret, the woman Alexander had hired to care for Oliver after Emily's death. Margaret had convinced doctors that Oliver was blind through careful manipulation during examinations, coaching the toddler to not respond to visual stimuli. using drops that temporarily dilated his pupils during appointments, creating false medical history. But why? The reason was chilling. Margaret had been embezzling money from Alexander's household accounts for years, and keeping Oliver isolated and disabled ensured he couldn't witness or report her theft, couldn't tell his father about the abuse and neglect happening when Alexander was away on business. Oliver, who'd been only 3 when Margaret's manipulation began, had been terrified into compliance through threats and punishment, conditioned to pretend blindness so thoroughly that he'd believed resisting meant worse harm. He'd lived in silence for 3 years, able to see everything but forced to act blind, watching his father's grief without being able to comfort him, seeing the world but trapped in performance of disability that protected his abuser. The psychological damage was profound but now exposed. Healing could finally begin. Alexander fired Margaret immediately and had her arrested. The investigation revealing she'd stolen over $2 million and caused immeasurable psychological harm to a vulnerable child. But his anger at Margaret was matched by crushing guilt. He'd been so consumed by grief and business that he'd failed to notice his son's imprisonment, had trusted caregivers without adequate oversight, had missed signs that something was desperately wrong. He'd believed doctors without question, accepted Oliver's condition without seeking multiple opinions, allowed his own grief to blind him to his son's suffering. Maya became unexpected catalyst for the family's healing. Alexander sought her out at the cafe, gratitude pouring through tears as he explained what her observation had uncovered. "You saved my son from years more of that nightmare. How did you notice what I missed for 3 years?" Maya's answer was simple. "I wasn't looking for blindness. I was just seeing Oliver as a child, not a diagnosis." Sometimes we're so convinced of what we know that we stop actually seeing what's in front of us. Alexander insisted on repaying Maya's kindness, offering money she politely refused, then offering to fund her education since she'd mentioned wanting to study child psychology. That Maya accepted, understanding that helping Alexander helped her achieve dreams of working with children who needed advocates. But more than financial support, Alexander asked Maya to spend time with Oliver, her presence representing safety and the person who'd finally seen him truly. Maya visited regularly, her genuine warmth helping Oliver slowly emerge from his traumatized shell. Months of therapy helped Oliver process his trauma, learn to use his vision openly, and rebuild trust destroyed by years of abuse. Alexander restructured his entire life, reducing business commitments to be present for his son, recognizing that wealth meant nothing if it cost him relationship with the child he'd nearly lost completely. He established foundation funding organizations that helped identify and prevent child abuse, particularly in wealthy households where money and privacy could hide terrible secrets. Oliver gradually healed, his personality emerging as he learned he could see openly without punishment, that his father believed him, that the nightmare had ended. On his 9th birthday, 3 years after Maya's observation had changed everything, Oliver stood before guests at his party and spoke clearly. "I want to thank Maya for seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for noticing what everyone else missed, and for teaching my dad and me that sometimes the most important things are noticed by people who care enough to really look." Alexander often reflected that his billions couldn't buy what a minimum wage waitress had given him: his son's freedom and their chance at real family. Maya had demonstrated that the most valuable observations come from people who see humans rather than diagnoses, who notice details others miss because they're genuinely paying attention rather than confirming assumptions. And Oliver learned that darkness isn't always physical, that sometimes people are trapped behind their own eyes by circumstances others create, but that healing begins when someone cares enough to truly see you, to question what everyone else accepts, and to insist that truth matters more than comfortable lies, proving that the most important vision isn't in our eyes, but in our willingness to see truth, even when it challenges everything we thought we knew.